COVID happening would be the worst thing that ever happened to me. Like, it totally derailed this massive company I was building. But it also caused me to stop and be like, is this what I want to be doing? It just was so much stress. And I felt like the weight of the world was on my shoulders.
Meet Emily McDonald, the founder of TheStylist LA, an entrepreneur with over 15 years of experience launching and scaling companies. She built a 7-figure business, created loyal customer base, and opened retail stores. She mentors female founders to grow their revenue and build sustainable businesses without the hustle culture.
I truly believe that you are a more mature founder and leader if you can figure out how to do it not being in hustle culture. Living, dying, and forgetting that there are other things out there in the world, like living and dying by your business, that's the piece of hustle culture I think is super unhealthy.
For a mature business, it's a lot easier to say that kind of stuff. A scaling or a startup business, though, I don't have the revenue, I don't have the capital to hire other people to do these hours.
The founders who are going to win are the ones that go in there and they're like, I'm building something incredible, like get in or get out. I'm confident of myself that I'm going to have boundaries.
With venture capital pressure, do they want to see you resting? Do they want to see you setting boundaries when their money's invested? How to counter some of those?
The first thing I'll say is like,
welcome to the Art of Succession podcast with Barrett Young. Join us as we explore the strategies, stories, and insights that shape the journey of leadership transitions and business success. No matter where you find yourself along the journey, this is the podcast where you'll find the tools to make it happen.
My name is Barrett Young, and this is the Art of Succession podcast. My guest today is Emily McDonald, a business strategist and mentor working with female entrepreneurs. Over the past 16 years, Emily has scaled multiple businesses to include a period of time where she took venture capital investment. And we're going to talk through the pros and cons of those decisions today. Emily, welcome to the Art of Succession.
hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. First question for you. What brings you to the Art of Succession? What do you really want our listeners to gain from this episode today? What really on your heart to share today?
Well, first, I could talk about business all day long. It's my favorite topic. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is, I wish when I was running my first company that more people told the real stories of running businesses and what it actually looks like and the real pros and cons. And so I just love sharing my story authentically and as transparently as possible so that other entrepreneurs feel less alone and, know the real ups and downs.
So let's talk about that first business, 16. So 2009, you started your first company then.
Yep, March of 2009.
What was that business? What was your background going into that business? What was like the impetus to get into that?
Okay, so let me take you back a little bit and then I'll explain what it is and how it came to be. So I was born wanting to be an entrepreneur. I was one of those people. And keep in mind, when I started this company in 2009, like being a founder, being an entrepreneur wasn't as trendy as it is today. So I grew up reading Entrepreneur Magazine books on how to open a clothing store. I knew I wanted to do something in fashion and I thought it would be a clothing store. I grew up in Oklahoma, my dream was to go to USC in LA, Southern California, because their entrepreneurship school is so good. So I went there, and while I was in college there, I was in a sorority, and I thought I wanted to open a clothing store. I still thought that was my dream. But I realized how saturated that market was, especially in LA, how expensive it was to start. Like that market just looked really like old and it was just changing. And at the same time, I was interning at a fashion PR firm and I was able to check out clothes. Okay, so all of these things came together. I was able to check out clothes for the weekend. You would log out, you would check out a dress, you would write in a little log that you were taking it, and then you would bring it back on Monday. All of this came together, and I was like, why can't the everyday girl rent clothes? So I wrote a business plan while I was at USC on it. I didn't start it right out of college. I got a graduate degree at the Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising, and I started working in the fashion industry. But then in 2008, end of 2008, beginning of 2009, the company I worked for went out of business, and they said, hey, we can't pay you, but we need your help closing up shop. We'll pay you in clothes. And I'd put this business plan on the back burner, but in my head, I always knew, and the reason why the sorority piece is important in college is because girls wanted new dresses all the time for their events, right? And that was kind of the height of like Facebook, Instagram starting and all of that. And girls were like, I don't want to be photographed in the same outfit twice. So all of this came together to converge and they said, look, we'll pay you in clothes. And I was like, well, I can't pay my rent like that, but you're paying me in dresses. Why don't I start this out of my living room? So I got 3 part-time jobs and I started renting dresses out of my living room. So TheStylist LA is my first company and it started as a dress rental company. It ended up expanding and became like a subscription rental company that rented a lot more than dresses, but that's how it began in March 2009.
Oh, wow. Okay. Just a little bit before we get into that, like the history. You were born wanting to be an entrepreneur. What was that? I mean, was that a parent that was an entrepreneur, a family member, or
No,
where'd that come from?
I mean, look, my dad's a lawyer. Everyone in my family is a lawyer but me.
Okay.
But my dad also has this like entrepreneur streak in him. So like my parents started a soccer club. Okay. And like it wasn't just like a chill soccer club. It was like a soccer club with like 3 teams per gender, per age group that were like sending kids to college. Like it was like next level. And my dad is a huge dreamer. And I think that was part of it. But it wasn't like I grew up with like a dad running a small business, right? So I don't really know where it came from other than that I was born that way. And everyone else, all my siblings are lawyers. And I was like, I want to create things. Like I wanted to start a magazine when I was 11. Like I just really wanted to make things out of nothing. And that's just something that's always driven me.
Okay. Interesting. And why the storefront idea? Why retail rather than getting into design or some other aspect of fashion?
So funny, I thought I wanted to do design for a minute. And then I realized, especially when I went to do the graduate degree at the Fashion Institute, my design friends, for every like one idea of design I had, they had like 65. And I just love the business side of it. So, like, I did like the creativity and the fashion piece, but like, I loved thinking about like how much inventory you would need. What are the numbers? Like, how many people would you need in each day? Like, that was kind of the stuff that really drives me. Like, how does this business model make sense? I also love marketing. And the reason why it was retail is because I have always, and I'll get into this in a minute with the Stylist LA, but like I've always loved the idea of the community you can build with in-person retail.
A go-to spot where all the latest trends can be
And like
discovered and everything.
where people can feel at home, they can have fun, they can enjoy themselves. I think one of the things did really well with the Stylist LA is we built like a cult-like following. Like we would have these sample sales, we would have lines out the door, down the block, and like a lot of that is because we did have 2 retail stores. So retail to me has always just been, and also I loved fashion growing up. I loved shopping. I grew up in Oklahoma, but we would like drive to Dallas and go shopping. I would save all my money and my mom would take us there. I just think I like the experience at in-person retail.
Okay, gotcha. So when you launch this from your living room, I mean, obviously expensive. I mean, you're coming up with a new model here. You see where social media is, and you see this need with your sorority sisters and everything like that. Did you have a tech background? Did you have a co-founder? Or, I mean, did you just post these on Instagram and say, "Send me, $100 and it's yours for the weekend"?
So, and this is why, like, it's gonna make sense that I was more an entrepreneur because some of this stuff was like, now looking back, you're like, duh, but no one was doing it at the time. So what I did is, first of all, I had a Wells Fargo credit card terminal because that's how you took credit cards. We started with Facebook albums of the dresses. So that's like how long ago it was, right? And I would take pictures on a mannequin, and it was a mannequin I got from the company that was going out of business. But the way that I got clients was I went back to my school. I went back to USC and to sororities and I said, "Hey, if one girl will help me host a trunk show, she'll get a free dress rental." So the reason why sororities are important is because it's a genius marketing idea because you have 200 girls in one spot who all need dresses for an event on Friday. Like, there's a dance on Friday. There's 200 girls in a sorority at USC, and they all need a dress. So I would have one girl host a trunk show. She would get first pick, and she would get, to pick the dress first, and she would get it for free, and then she would host the trunk show, and then girls would rent for the event. We'd come back on Monday and pick all the dresses up.
Wow,
So that
that's a
was
lot of inventory.
I mean, it is, which what's funny is when I first started buying inventory, I would go to sample sales in LA with cash, and that's how I'd get inventory. So it was super scrappy at first, but yeah, that's how we did it, and no tech background at all. I think now is a different era. Like, one, Shopify exists. Like, Shopify didn't exist. We were one of the first people to use Shopify, by the way. But before Shopify, we had a guy build a custom website, and I paid him thousands of dollars, and like it didn't work.
Yeah,
And
all patched together with
yes,
WordPress on the back end kind of thing.
totally, exactly. And like I had no background of that. Co-founders, co-founders weren't a thing, right? Like it was just so much less trendy. Like now, being an entrepreneur, starting a business is easy. I mean, I don't want to say easier because they're harder pieces. It's more saturated, but like it's easier from like a logistics perspective. Like you start a Stripe or Square account, you can use Shopify or Squarespace. Like you're not building as much from scratch.
Wow. Okay, so talk me through those first 6 months. Just how quickly it grew, word of mouth, lessons quickly learned, different things like that.
Yeah, one thing that's funny because that's kind of a long time ago, but one thing I remember very vividly is how like insecure I was about the idea. Even though like I knew it was a good idea because no one was doing it yet. Like Rent the Runway became our biggest competition and they weren't live yet. So people would be like, "Do I wanna wear a dress that someone else had worn?" But then, like, the people who wanted it were super excited. So that was a little bit of, like, the scary thing at the beginning, right? And somebody said this the other day, and I think it's so important. They were like, "If no one's hating on your idea, you're too late." Like, you want to have I have a client and a friend who's launching something super cool, and people are hating on his idea, and I'm like, yeah, it's because 'cause you're at the right spot, right? Like, if it's already been done, people are like, "That's a great idea," right? So you want to have those people, but for me, I do remember how scary it was for me to be like, "Is this a real thing?" I kept the part-time jobs for a while. So, okay, so 2009, then we rented a teeny tiny office space in downtown LA for $350 a month. It was on the 12th floor, didn't have air conditioning. And really the first 4 years, so until 2013, it was a slog. Like, we were growing, but it was very much like I very much believe in building a business and customer base brick by brick by brick, and that's what I did, and I kept the part-time jobs, and then in 2013 was when we moved into our first real showroom, which was in Venice, and that was when we really started to, like, really take off. But the first 4 years, yeah, it was like me schlepping dresses around LA to different colleges, to different sororities, and really, like, just pouring my heart and soul into it.
Talk to me about just identifying or testing to find that value proposition here. I mean, how do you set pricing for this? Like repeatability of customers? Just talk to me through some of that stuff if you can remember.
Yeah, so the pricing was super tricky. It's funny thinking back, like, we would do, like, a $30 rental, a $50 rental, and a $70 rental plus, like, a $7 cleaning fee, which just doesn't even make sense. I don't know why we did that at the beginning, but there was no one else doing it, right? So, like, we it was trial and error, and then, like, how much does it cost to dry clean it? What if there's a hole, how much does that cost to fix? Like, that kind of thing. And so pricing was tricky, and I just really went on, like, gut and trial and error. Luckily, we could change it quickly, right? Like, I could raise it pretty easily. The other thing with repeatability of customers is one of my secret weapons is, like, building a cult-like following, right? Like, building this customer base that, like, absolutely loves us. So our repeat customer base was off the charts. Like, people were obsessed. Once they rented once, they wanted to rent all the time. So that's also what I mean about brick by brick and how we became so big pre-pandemic is because people we were, like, building on like, it was like every time someone rented, they always came back. So as we built the customer base, it really grew exponentially in number of sales.
Okay. So you've got a location now in Venice. What size did you get this company to? How did you start to attract venture interest? Like, talk to me just about the growth and when it really started to make sense to outsiders, not just sororities and people in design.
An interesting thing that I don't talk about that much publicly, and I don't know why, but it's in 2013, I actually had an angel investor approach me and wanna put in 20K. So she put in 20K, which really helped us open the showroom. And that's what we did then. I think then we were still only doing probably like 125K or so a year, 100 like before the Venice showroom, it was over 100K, but like it was hard to build above that because it was like it was kind of mobile. Then when we had the Venice showroom, spring of 2013, and then we kept grinding away, right? And then it was like from like 2013 to like the beginning of 2016, I would say we were probably like 350K-ish in revenue. And then 2016 was a huge year for us. We ended up raising in 2017, which I'll explain in a minute. 2016, I dressed the girls on The Bachelor, and it was the perfect storm. It was the height of The Bachelor. I swear it was like the season that everyone was watching it the most. We dressed the winner. She didn't have a stylist. She didn't have clothes to wear. She went on this media tour. We dressed her for the whole thing. We were in Us Weekly. We were in People Magazine. We were all over the place, and sales started to skyrocket. We did a crowdfunding campaign in the summer, and we opened a San Francisco store as a pop-up in the fall. We ended up keeping it open, and that was when, then we hit over 500K, and then we raised money in 2017 because I was like, this is a rocket ship. Like, there is just so much potential here, but rental is a very logistically heavy and expensive business to run.
Still you as the sole, 100% owner, other than the angels
Yep.
and the cap table and everything like that? Okay.
Until I raised in 2017.
Yep. Gotcha. Talk to me just if we can take a detour quickly into the crowdfunding space in the mid 2010s, because that was really popular, but I don't know how quickly or if it had expanded into fashion at this point. Yeah, just talk to me just a little bit about that.
So it was not equity crowdfunding. So let's put it that it was all just like they would give
Was it
money.
Kickstarter or
It was
Indiegogo or
Indiegogo. Yeah, it was
okay.
Indiegogo, and I think we raised, like, 25K, I wanna say. It was crazy. It was a wild ride. We had, like, partners, like, for example, SoulCycle, which I don't know if you're familiar with SoulCycle. It's one of my favorite things still to this day. I love it. They gifted us classes, and, like, we would have a free class. People would pay $10 to come. That would go towards the Indiegogo. We had, like, prizes people could win. We would give them, like, different levels of things if they put in a certain amount of money. So that was really interesting because it was very much like a storytelling exercise, and one of the reasons we did it too was to get people on board, so everyone knew we were opening in San Francisco. So it was also a huge marketing activity for us.
How big is the company at this point? 2 stores, not anywhere near each other really.
You mean
How
team-wise or revenue-wise?
team-wise?
Before we opened San Francisco, because I didn't hire someone for San Francisco in 2016. It opened in November, and I worked it. I was like, "I'm
Oh,
working
wow.
this store." And
Okay.
then in the spring of 2017, I hired someone to run that store. So 2016, I had 3 employees in LA and me full-time, and that was it. So 4 full-time people. And then we had part-time people as we needed them, but it was mostly that. And then in 2017, I hired my first full-time in San Francisco, and then we had a few part-time people in San Francisco.
Okay. So when you went to set up the San Francisco store, you just went up there and lived there for 6 months
Well,
and ran the store entirely by yourself?
yes, there was an impetus for me doing it, which it's funny how it made such perfect sense. So, first of all, when this all was happening, a lot of people were graduating college in LA and moving to San Francisco. It was when LinkedIn had a huge office, Facebook, they weren't Meta yet, Facebook, Google, like a lot of the LA people were moving up here after college. And the tech jobs were like super, super hot. Okay, so that's one of the reasons I was like, San Francisco is the next city because these people have already been renting from us in college and now they're moving there. At the same time, in 2015, my husband, he was not my husband at the time, moved up here for a job. So I ended up splitting time between the two cities. Even after I opened San Francisco, up until the pandemic, I went back and forth all the time and I kept a place there and then stayed at his place up here. So, it was a nice way to do it without having to, like, rent an extra bedroom or something, you know what I mean? Like, it was a very natural progression.
I gotcha. Okay. So what did they approach you? Did you approach them? What was like the desire behind wanting to scale at the level necessary for VC?
Yeah, I decided it was time. Like, I was just like, "Look, this is a rocket ship. We need to put fuel on the fire. It's going really well. We're growing really quickly. Rent the Runway's also growing really quickly." They had raised a ton of money at that point, and I was like, "It's time." So one of the most interesting things that happened and one of the best things that happened to me is I ended up pitching to Jason Calacanis, and I don't know if you know who he is, but he is the host of the All In podcast. He was one of the first investors in Uber, Robinhood, Palm.com, and he is a really well-known angel investor, and I pitched to him kind of at this, like I didn't even know I was really doing this. It was more for practice, but, like, he had this, like, founders day where he taught founders, like, about growing and building a, VC-backed startup. And so I went and I got there early, so I was the first one to pitch, and he, like, loved me. And so he was like, "Come be in my incubator." And so I had to apply and I still had to, like, interview, but he was like, You seem great, like, I'd love to have you in this." And in the incubator, they invest 100K, and then they also you go through this 8-week program, I think maybe then it was 12 weeks, I can't remember exactly, but where you pitch to investors every single week, and they help you raise. So, that was awesome, it was such an incredible experience, and that was, like, the summer-ish of 2017, and that is really how I got most of my investors, and he's an angel investor, but then Precursor Ventures, which is a venture capital firm, came in, and that's how we raised.
Okay. I mean, was your intent to do a website? Did you have a website at this point? Was it still that piecemeal kind of back end?
No, so by then we
No, it was
switched
on
to
Shopify at
Shopify.
this point.
We
Okay.
switched to Shopify, and we had an idea that ended up launching in the fall of 2019, which was to do a very scaled rental subscription on more casual private label clothes. And I still believe that if COVID hadn't happened, that probably would have been, like, the next huge thing because the profit margin was so good and people loved the clothes because they weren't like anything else. It was our own private labels. And so that was what we raised a lot of money for, was to build that and, like, get the inventory for that and scale that. That's what we saw as scalability. Like, the retail
Gotcha. So it
stores,
wasn't to open a 3rd or 4th
well, we
location
thought we
necessarily.
were planning on eventually opening more locations because we believe that that's how you built a cult-like following, right? And we believe, like, that's how you really saturated great markets. Like, we thought we'd eventually do New York, Dallas, cities like that. But the first step was scaling this online rental subscription model. And then we also had the idea of, like, having Stylist LA vending machines, right? Where you could, like, pick up your box, pop your box in, like, just ideas to make it easier. And I think that the retail stores are important because I think they were, Rent the Runway ended up closing theirs, but I think a lot of it was the pandemic. But I think they were an important piece of really getting into a market. They weren't in the short-term plan, let's put it that way, but they were definitely something that was still on our radar as we were scaling.
Okay, cool. What did that raise look like?
So a priced round is like, I'm gonna butcher this because 'cause I'm not like a finance person, but you can raise on a safe or a convertible note, right? Which is like, once you raise a priced round, it converts, and it's just a lot cheaper and a lot simpler. And we raised over time, we raised a little over like 1.2 million, but it wasn't all in one round. And a priced round is very expensive because it's very expensive legally. Like, taking all the documents, it's a lot more complex. And I think we were given advice that I don't think was that great by an investor, which is, I think we should have waited to do a priced round until we were raising more, just because I think it makes the most sense, like, when you're raising, like, probably, like, over 1.5 or something in one round. Again, don't quote me on this. That is not, ask your lawyer. But, personally, it just was very expensive to do a price round.
So 1.2 million across how many investors? I mean, what's the average that VCs are putting into this thing right now?
Okay, so let me think this through. So Precursor put in 400K. Jason had 100K, then Jason's syndicate came in, which is a bunch of different investors, but I think they total, like, was, like, 150, and then there were a lot of angel investors. So, I mean, I will tell you, I pitched to over 150 investors, and I think, and the cap table is different because obviously his syndicate is a number of investors, but it's in as one SCP, and so I would say there's probably, like, 40 investors total.
Yeah, about half of them are the small 5-figure amounts kind of thing. So, okay,
And
gotcha.
luckily with Jason's syndicate, like, anyone under 25K, you'd send them to Jason's syndicate. So you could only be on the cap table with a 25K investment or more.
Okay, gotcha. I mean, COVID is looming in the distance, I know, but talk to me just about the 2 years between that. I know that you had a turning point, your own personal journey, but was that pre-COVID? Was that instigated by COVID? Or just, like, talk to me about the success
So,
and
okay,
and
so
then we could.
2018, 2019, I mean, it was just, I sometimes I hate saying this because, like, it's sad a little bit. It was really, really hard. We did not raise enough money. We should have raised, like, $5 million. There was never enough money. We had an investor that was extremely late to wire and, like, kinda kept promising but pushing back. So it'd be like, "It's coming next week. It's coming by the end of the month," and it wouldn't, and, like, there was just a lot of stress around the money of scaling this type of business, and I was super stressed. So 2018 was great. Then we get into 2019 and we're launching this thing in November of 2019, and my anxiety was through the roof. We were actually doing really well numbers-wise, like, we were growing pretty quickly, but the problem was, again, there just was never enough cash. It was just, and not only never enough cash, but the logistics. So we started actually doing the rental subscription on our own in March of 2019, and we were running the logistics of it before we sourced to a partner in November, and that was gonna be a bigger launch. We wanted to test the concept. It was amazing, but it was mania. Like, literally, we rented office space to be our warehouse down the street from our showroom. This part was actually kind of fun, but it was crazy. Like, I had, like, staff members, like, running to pick up stuff to ship, running it to the dry cleaners. Like, it was just it was a crazy thing to try and run yourself. And then in November, we launched it with, a partner, and they did all the heavy lifting. They did the warehousing and the logistics, so prepping for that was hard, but it was still really good. We were raising more money then, and in the beginning of 2020, so we're raising more money. We still have an investor who hasn't wired. We're running out of money.
Oh, wow, like, over a year at this point?
Yeah. It was supposed to be in 2 tranches, so it was 9 months late eventually when we got it, but so, beginning of 2020, I am newly pregnant with my first child. We have no money, literally no money. I'm waiting on an investor to send money. I'm raising money, like, the looking back, I would've done things so differently, right? But, like, I just didn't know. Like, now I would have never counted on that investor's money, and I would have pulled back. If he was like, "Don't pull back, like, keep going, like, I have the money for you," like, whatever. Now I would not do that, but, beginning of 2020, I was pregnant, right? We were running out of money. We were scaling this thing, like, it just was so much stress, and I felt like I was on a runaway train. And this was before the pandemic happened. Like, it was just like I was waking up in the middle of the night, I was having panic attacks, like, I felt like and I'm so different now, I've evolved a lot since then, but I felt like the weight of the world was on my shoulders. And looking back, the problem was I was putting everyone ahead of myself. Wasn't paying myself. Like, if I could do it again, I would have
10 years in, and you're still not really paying
and I
yourself.
was when we raised it first, like, I was for a
Okay.
while, but then
Sure,
when we were
there's
launching
cash
this,
there.
when we were waiting on the money, like, and it just was one of those things where, like, I was super burnt out. And what's interesting is when I started this and when I was fundraising, I was like, "I will never quit this company. This is my heart and soul. I love it so much." But then, like, there's only so long and this is why I told you I'm anti-hustle culture because there's only so long you can keep up that pace. And so really, like, February of 2020, like, it was just hitting me hard. Like, I wasn't sleeping. I was like, "This isn't good for my new unborn baby." Like, it was just one of those things where I was like, "This is catching up to me. Like, this does not feel good." And so then the pandemic hit. And at first, that was so much more stress, right? Because we had to figure out what to do with the team. I'll never forget, we were at a trade show in Vegas. It's Magic Trade Show. It's a big fashion trade show at the end of February, beginning of March, and people were talking about COVID. People were like there were a lot of Chinese manufacturers, right? And COVID was already kind of a thing in China. And people would be like, "Oh my
Yeah,
gosh."
there were, like, echoes of it in November, December, January. It's like, "Is stuff gonna be canceled? No, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Just keep going."
And it
So,
was weird because then when we came back from that,
yeah.
it was like just time, right? And so what was weird is our stores closed. We thought they would only be closed for 2 weeks. And then it just kept snowballing. And it was crazy because we were a special occasion company. Like, you rented to go to
Yeah, events. There are no
weddings, wine
events.
tasting, vacation, like, it was
Yeah.
wild. So, we kept hanging on as long as we could. The good news is the writing was on the wall with San Francisco, and our lease was up. So, we just closed out of that in May. Like, we were like, "We're done." And that was a good decision because we had, like, a really tricky landlord there, and also, like, San Francisco, just, like, everyone left. And I live in the Bay Area. I live in, like, 45 minutes south, so, like, I know that area very well, and LA was different. LA was, like some people were still doing things, like, it wasn't as strict, like, it just was San Francisco was like a ghost town. Well, we closed that store in May, and we went heavily online, and then we kept the LA store till June of 2021. But, in California, things just kept closing. Like, they would close, then open back up, then close again. I furloughed the team, and then when we closed that store, we ended up just going fully online. It still exists today, The Stylist LA does. It is a much smaller glimpse of what it used to be, but it's interesting because, like, you'd think that COVID happening would be the worst thing that ever happened to me, right? Like, it totally derailed this massive company I was building, but it also caused me to stop and be like, "Is this what I wanna be doing?" And I loved what I was building, but the way we were building it just wasn't sustainable.
Yeah, talk to me a little bit about that because I know I've worked with venture capital and angel investors before. You're selling to 2 people. You're selling to the investors, you're selling to your customers. Um,
Which are 2
it
very different.
very different purposes and needs. It's like, yeah, $25,000 raise is great, but the amount of work that goes into that versus $250, $100 dresses. Talk to me just about I probably some of it's California, probably some of it's the founder mythos around startups and everything like that, but how did you get into that hustle culture? How did you find yourself? I mean, you didn't have the boundaries because nobody told you to set the boundaries, but just talk to me about how you would advise somebody different today. If
Well,
you want to compete on this level, you want to work with the Bachelor, you want to do all of this stuff. How do you do that and not work 70, 80, 100 hours?
so that's such a good question. I think the first thing I'll say is like times were a little different in 2016. Everyone was on Twitter, which is what it was called then, talking about how hard they were working, right? Like it was like founders were only valuable if you were like sleeping under your desk and like whatever. Now, thank God, because there's been a swing the other way, there is a little bit more focus on founder mental health. What I will say is, I truly believe that you are a more mature founder and leader if you can figure out how to do it not being in hustle culture. Now, let me caveat. There will absolutely be times in every business where you have to work more than is balanced. Right? Like, I just actually came out of a sprinting phase. Like, I hosted a bunch of in-person events in April, and I really March and April was in a very busy working every night after the kids went to bed, like, phase. But you have to come out of it, and you have to have it takes discipline, it takes boundaries, it takes maturity to be able to do it, and you still absolutely can hit those goals without being in hustle culture. You may have to work super hard sometimes, right? Like, I am not against hard work by any means. What I am against is tying your worth up in your revenue, tying your worth up in what your business sales look like today or this month, living, dying, and forgetting that there are other things out there in the world, like living and dying by your business. That's the piece of hustle culture I think is super unhealthy. Because I do believe you are better for your business when you're a balanced human. I think you make much better decisions.
Yeah, I think for a mature business, it's a lot easier to say that kind of stuff. A scaling or a startup business, though, I don't have the revenue, I don't have the capital to hire other people to do these hours. With venture capital pressure, do they want to see you resting? Do they want to see you setting boundaries when their money's invested? I hope that you've enjoyed part 1 of this episode with Emily McDonald. We're going to pick up part 2, which you can find linked right here, where we're going to talk about the warning signs and the work that Emily does now as a business strategist. If you're interested in being a guest on The Art of Succession, you can find our interview form down in the description below. If this episode has been at all helpful for you, I'd ask that you please share it with someone else. And I want to thank you for watching The Art of Succession.